Good evening and welcome. Tonight we are going to be flipping through this book about Jordan. We're going to look at all the pictures and read all the little boxes. Now this book has a lot of little boxes, so we won't spend too long on the pictures, but we'll still look through them. They're still nice pictures. Look at these happy smiley faces here. Beautiful landscape here. Looks like the Dead Sea, probably. There is Lawrence of Arabia. I think like the entirety of this film was filmed in Jordan, and there are scenes set in Jordan too. And some happy people here. It says they are Bedouin. Look at this landscape. Like if you took away the tree and made the sky red, it would be Mars, right? How cool. It's so beautiful here. It's so, like, the empty parts are so hauntingly empty. Like this place, the Valley of the Moon. Though Wadi Rum has been nicknamed the Grand Canyon of the Middle East, to the Arab people it is known as the Valley of the Moon. What was I saying? It's like space. With its strange rock formations and vast landscapes, Wadi Rum can seem more like the surface of a neighboring planet than any earthen scene. The region features ancient rock carvings among the rose-tinged sands, and the majesty of the otherworldly terrain leaves visitors and inhabitants in awe. Tourism has not only allowed visitors to access the astonishing landscape, but also provided a cultural exchange between outsiders and Bedouin camps situated in the area. There's a map of Jordan. Let's read about the Black Desert. One of the bleakest wastelands on earth exists in Jordan's northeastern desert, consisting mostly of vast fields of sharp, rough, black lava rock. It is extraordinarily forbidding, unfit even for grazing sheep. This moonscape of volcanic mountains and smaller cinder cones extends into both Syria and Iraq, and is the site of the ancient city of Jawa, the ruins of which can still be seen today. Bedouin superstition claims it is the land of the devil, Bilad ash-Shaitan, and they call it the stony land of walking men. In other words, fit only to pass through on the way to another place. Ooh. Some old Roman ruins here. Pretty intact. I mean, part of it isn't, but the part that is beautiful, isn't it? And a little tourist stop there in the desert. It's a beautiful shore of Aqaba down in the south. Let's read about the Great Rift Valley. This giant crack was formed during the Pleistocene epoch 2.5 million years ago, when the African continental plate began to split. It is still expanding at the rate of about 0.04 inches a year, slowly pushing Africa away from the Arabian Peninsula. The Jordan River Valley, the Dead Sea, which is the lowest point on Earth's surface, the colorful cliffs of Petra, and the port of Aqaba are all found in the northern part of the Great Rift Valley. Near its southern end lies Lake Victoria in East Central Africa, portrayed in the movie The African Queen. There's like a cool shot from like space here. You can see the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea, the Jordan River between them, and the Asrak Oasis. Very lush, isn't it? And this is definitely the Dead Sea. Yeah, you can tell by all of the salt built up on the coast. And there's some Arabian oryx. Very endangered animal. Very old map here of Jordan. You can see it's called the Salt Sea. I like that. And the little areas therein. How cool is that? This is the ancient city they're talking about called Jawa. And let's read about the fruit goddess. Tanur Atargatis was the goddess of fruits and fertility for the Nabateans, who occupied the Jordan River Valley in the first few centuries BCE. Her worship extended through various civilizations, and her image has been found carved into temple ruins. The sculpted busts feature the goddess's lips and eyes, believed to have been once painted red, and wavy hair. Temples dedicated to her were said to feature sacred ponds stocked with fish that only her priests were permitted to touch. There's the Temple of Artemis in Jerash. Incredible site. I'm sure it'll talk about Petra soon. Like Petra's like the most number one incredible site or ancient site in Jordan. This is number 2 for sure. Kites in the sand. Once prehistoric hunters and gatherers discovered ways to keep large numbers of animals at one site, permanent settlements could be built. Such was the case with what modern Bedouins call the Old Men of Arabia. In Jordan's eastern desert are the faintest remnants, outlines mostly, of kite-shaped corrals where wild or semi-domesticated animals could be herded. The basic outlines are stone, but there is some evidence that posts and other materials may have been used to form the corrals and their long funnel-shaped entrances. The exact age of the structures is not known, but some archaeologists think they were built by the Arab ancestors of present-day Bedouins. Here it is. Petra, the rose-colored city. The pinnacle of Nabatean civilization from about the 4th century BCE to the 2nd century CE is still visible today in the ancient city of Petra. With an ample supply of fresh spring water, the city became a major stopping point on the caravan route from Arabia to the Mediterranean. Petra is a city of elaborate facades in a combination of unique Nabatean and Greco-Roman architectural styles. They were carved into reddish-purple sandstone cliffs, leading to the name Rose-Colored City, hundreds of feet high, in a network of canyons that are part of the Great Rift Valley. Behind the often enormous front faces of the cliffs are relatively small square rooms. The city was ideal for protection from enemies, since the main entrance was through the Seek, a narrow winding cleft in the sandstone. Its high elevation of 2,700 feet above sea level and its location at the bottom of the gorges made it a cool place to live in summer. In winter, it sometimes snows on the heights, while there is no snow at the bottom of the canyons. During the Arab uprising against the Ottoman Turks in World War I, Petra was the site of a famous battle in which Lawrence of Arabia fought. In the 1980s, the city was used as the setting for the end of the film Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Today, some Bedouins who serve as tourists live in the caves. So amazing. That's definitely like on my list to see someday. Zionism. Let's see what this says. In 1878, Jews bought farmland in what was then Palestine. Their aim was to set up a community. At that time, there was much persecution of the Jews in Eastern Europe. In 1837, Theodor Herzl created the World Zionist Organization. Waves of immigrants entered Palestine and set up agricultural settlements throughout the country. During World War I, the British Foreign Secretary, Arthur James Balfour, declared that his government favored the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people. This led to the promise of British assistance embodied in the Balfour Declaration. The problem in Palestine today stems from the fact that this decision displaced millions of native Arabs who had made this land their home for the past 1,000 years. Thus, while Zionism ensured a home for the landless nation, aka Jews around the world, it overlooked the impact that such a move would have on the native populace. Greatly impacted Jordan, by the way, which is what we're talking about. Obviously, it was a whole thing. Still ongoing, but obviously not as extreme as it was back then. Is it good to be king? While Jordan's constitutional monarchy invests great power in its king, the pressing issues confronting the country lay squarely on the monarch's shoulders. Being faced with the domestic tasks of rooting out corruption, initiating social reform, fostering economic independence, and managing Jordan's lack of economic resources would prove daunting to any leader. King Abdullah has the added tension of being at the somewhat calm center of a regional chaos. The Arab Spring uprisings, which began in late 2010, have persisted, resulting in the unseating of leaders in Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, and Yemen. These anti-government protests led to civil war in Syria, with troops fighting rebel forces. Hundreds of thousands have died in the conflict, and millions have been displaced. While Jordan has largely managed to avoid major unrest, there have been incidents of violence and protests throughout the kingdom, demanding better jobs and restraints on the king's power. In 2013, King Abdullah responded by holding early elections, consulting Parliament regarding the appointment of a new prime minister, and restructuring his cabinet to facilitate his agenda of reform. All of these actions were taken under the duress of domestic constraints and the Syrian war, which unleashed a stream of hundreds of thousands of refugees into Jordan, further threatening the country's potential for prosperity. As one of very few relatively stable diplomats in the area, King Abdullah is also under enormous pressure from foreign allies to accelerate the pace of reform in the wake of the events of the Arab Spring. The king's critics make the point that the people of the Middle East are pushing for change without the impetus of the Jordanian government to match their fervor. Interesting. Let's see, that's where the parliament meets. Let's see. Goodness, there we go. Lots of boxes. I told you there's so many boxes. Local government. In order to govern locally, Jordan is divided into 12 districts, each of which has an appointed governor. The districts are further divided into manageable administrative regions. The Ministry of the Interior is responsible for supervising the governorates, though governors do enjoy a wide range of administrative authorities. Governing documents and political parties. This is the kind of topic where either it's super boring or you're like super into it. Which one are you? Two important documents that define and guide Jordan's government are the country's constitution and the national charter. The constitution was written in 1949 and has been amended several times. It outlines Jordan's system as a hereditary monarchy that governs in tandem with a parliament. The rights and expectations of Jordan's citizens are delineated, as well as the authority of the monarch. The National Charter, developed in the early 1990s, serves to recognize the country's many political groups, underlines democratic freedom of Jordanians, and stresses the country's Arab identity and priorities. 60 members from across Jordan's diverse political spectrum were appointed to the commission that formulated the National Charter. The Charter provides guidelines by which the parties should engage each other. These guidelines are invaluable, considering that there are over 20 registered parties in Jordan with a wide range of ideological foundations. The parties generally fall into the three categories of leftists, centrists, and Islamists, with the Islamists invariably receiving the most popular support. The National Charter instructs Jordan's leaders to operate within the bounds of the Constitution and without the help of foreign funds. More boxes. Let's talk about Islamists. The term Islamist is often used to refer to fundamentalist Muslims. In Jordan, there are two Islamist parties, the first being the Muslim Brotherhood, which had a close relationship to the establishment of the PLO in 1964. Their activities could be described as fundamentalist and anti-establishment to a certain degree, in view of the relationship between the Jordanian crown and the government of the PLO. Conversely, the Islamic Action Front is a legal Jordanian party that bases its policies on promoting democracy within Jordan and therefore works on a concurrent level with the government and the crown. Moving on to human rights. Jordan's interest in democracy is perhaps most evident in the emergence of a variety of organizations focused on promoting and protecting human rights. These organizations are steadily raising awareness about individual freedoms and are active forces in Jordanian politics. Some of these groups include Amnesty International, the National Society for Enhancing Democracy and Freedoms, and the Arab Organization for Human Rights. Though Jordan has had setbacks on the road toward democratization, these organizations are working to ensure that freedom is highly valued in Jordanian society. Let's see. On to some pictures. There's the police there and a little motorcycle. And downtown Amman, the capital of Jordan. And my goodness, Jordan's Royal Desert Forces kind of reminds me of like the Mounties as to Canada, the Texas Rangers to Texas. Here's the Royal Desert Forces. Pretty cool. Look at these. I was gonna say, are these like jelly beans? But they're pharmaceuticals. Do not eat these like they're jelly beans. He's got his little sheepies, herding him down the road. Let's read about working the land. While Jordan's economy depends mostly on other sources of revenue, agriculture does contribute to the country's GDP. Certain crops, namely citrus fruits and some vegetables, are cultivated and exported. As with all farming, the climate of the region determines the kinds of crops that can be grown. In Jordan's highlands, where the altitude changes drastically, fruit trees, grains, and some vegetables are present. In the Great Rift Valley, soil is hospitable and irrigation is generally sufficient for fruits and vegetables. About 60% of Jordan's agriculture is cultivated in the Great Rift Valley. In Jordan's more arid areas, making up 2/3 of the country's landmass, the unwelcoming climate and little rain make it inhospitable for farming. However, livestock such as herds of goats are raised in this region. Irrigation challenges and environmental issues prohibit agriculture from being a substantial contributor to the Jordanian economy. As a result, many Jordanians engage in other forms of labor to support themselves. Got a tourist here taking a picture of a camel. And let's read about some important sites. Seeking to capitalize on recent growth, Jordan's Council of Ministers compiled the Jordan Tourism Board in 1997, the kingdom's first official tourism organization. The video you saw yesterday was 80% of my information came from the website of the Jordan Tourism Board, so thank you, Jordan Tourism Board. Today, Jordan continues to be home to many archaeological wonders that draw visitors each year. Petra, the ancient rose-colored city, is located just 3 hours outside of Amman and features tombs cut directly into the rock face that have lasted thousands of years. Archaeologists take a special interest in Petra because much of this historical area has large swaths yet to be investigated. Even today, surprising finds continue to be discovered in the area. In June 2016, archaeologists used satellite and drone imaging to reveal a previously unknown monument about 0.5 miles south of the ancient city's center. Chances are good that more such finds will appear in Petra in the future. Another attraction located near Petra is Wadi Rum. There, some visitors enjoy rock climbing and camel safaris. In South Jordan, tourists interested in water sports are drawn to Aqaba, which is sometimes referred to as Jordan's window to the sea. The warm and calm waters of the Gulf of Aqaba provide a tranquil diver's paradise. Snorkeling, sailing, windsurfing, fishing, and water skiing are also popular. Aqaba's majestic coral reefs also enchant visitors and are a prized feature of Jordan's landscape. Real quick, I know in Jordan it's pronounced Aqaba, but I'm pronouncing it the American English way, so don't come for me. That's what we call it in America. Jordan's business advantages. For foreign interests, there are many advantages to doing business with Jordan versus other Middle Eastern countries. Jordan's central location, allowing for travel to Syria, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia, is a major asset for potential business contacts. Embedded infrastructure allows for telephone, electricity, and sewage systems to support the flow of business, along with effortless travel and transport options via the country's highways, rail system, and airports. The political stability of a country governed along constitutional guidelines is a draw for outsiders, along with the stability of Jordan's currency. The variety of incentives offered to countries that do business in Jordan also serve to make Jordan appealing to foreign companies. These incentives are increasingly generous and wide-ranging, including tax-free income for foreigners working for non-Jordanian companies and temporary exemption from property tax. Who's asleep now? Leave a comment if you're asleep now. Again, that's like a topic that's either like super fascinating to you or like the most boring thing in the world. The airport here in Amman, Queen Halia International Airport. The environment. Look at this picture, this beautiful valley down here. Little palm trees everywhere. And then there's all these smokestacks. Interesting little juxtaposition there. Untreated sewage. Oh boy. Let's not look at that picture. And another overtaxed water system. Another yucky overflow. Sorry. The unicorn's ancestor? ? There is a belief that the mythical unicorn was modeled after the Arabian oryx, even though the latter has 2 straight, sharp horns instead of the single horn of the unicorn. The oryx, a type of antelope, has a striking appearance, and the Arabs cherish it for its beautiful dark eyes. Its Arabic name, Maha, a common name for women, means crystal, and was inspired by the pure white fur of its body. Evolution has given the creature a characteristic that also belongs to camels, that of being able to live for extended periods in intense heat without food or water. This makes both animals ideally suited to life in the desert. Regrettably, as with many other creatures that have been able to adapt to harsh environments, the oryx has fallen prey to hunters. Most had been killed by the middle of the 20th century. However, the Arabian Oryx World Herd Trustees was established in 1962 to restore the oryx to the wild, using zoo stock from around the world. Since then, they have multiplied and are on their way to becoming a viable wild population again. In Jordan, a group of 20 oryx were introduced to the wild in Wadi Rum in 2009. However, low population numbers keep the species at the endangered level as of 2016 when this book came out. Arabian oryx, I feel like, belong on like the chart of goofy animals, where like the saiga antelope is a 10, Arabian oryx are like a 4.5. Like they're on there. They're not the goofiest animals, but to me they're on the goofy animal scale. Look at this beautiful smile. What a lovely face. And look at these. You can tell he's smiling. His mouth is covered up. But those are some smiley eyes, aren't they? Here are some refugees here. Lots and lots of refugees living in Jordan. And some Bedouin people. Another beautiful smile there. A tale of Arab hospitality. In traditional Arab culture, legends dramatized the standards to be lived up to. Here's the story of Hatim Atay relating to Arab hospitality. Before his birth, Hatim's mother had a dream in which she had the choice of having 10 sons as brave as eagles, or only one who would surpass all men in generosity. She chose the latter. One day, as a youth, Hatim was sent to pasture the family's camels. He returned soon after, happily saying that he had brought fame to his ancestral name by giving away all the camels as gifts. Hatim's generosity continued through his long life and did not end with his death. Years later, a rival tribe that was jealous of his reputation was camping near his grave and scorning his deeds. During the night, Hatim appeared in a dream to the leader of the group, inviting the man to feast on his tribe's only camel. In the morning, the man discovered that his camel was dead, so the tribe did feast on it. As the people went on their way after breakfast, they met Hatim's son leading a black camel. He told the tribe that his father had appeared in a dream the night before and ordered him to find the tribe traveling without a camel so that he could give it the black one. Interesting story. I like it. A busy day in Amman. A very busy day in Amman. Almost looks like LA right there. Some happy smiley guys there. And some more happy smiley guys having some tea. And a nice little family photo there. I like it. Let's see. Homemade wedding dresses. Bedouins and villagers are traditional people. One custom they practiced was for a young woman to create her own wedding dress, with considerable help from older, experienced women. The patterns of the dresses were set by the village or clan tradition, although there were personal variations within those patterns. Traditional gowns were usually black and always had extensive, elaborate embroidery in unique patterns and bright colors. A dress took a year or longer to sew by hand and was often signed by the maker. Her name was embroidered into some part of the garment. The left side of the dress was often highly decorated, while the right side had only coarse, simple designs. This is because a baby is traditionally carried on the right arm. The dresses were also worn long after the wedding. Today, most wedding dresses are made by the local tailor. For tourists, such gowns are purchases prized for their intricate beauty and the tremendous amount of work that has gone into them. There's a funeral over here. Probably a soldier if the flag is on their casket there. UN Women Jordan. Since 2010, the United Nations Women Branch in Jordan has committed to educating men, women, and youths on issues of Jordanian life that affect women especially. These areas include equality, empowerment of women, education, professional aspirations, and the dangers of violence and radicalization. They conduct research into these areas, offer educational resources, and participate in global initiatives to better the livelihoods of women within Jordan and around the world. For more information, you can visit jordan.unwomen.org. We've got a teacher here teaching their class, and a little village there. A goat hair house. Only 1% of Jordan's population now lives in tents. However, a romantic image of the strong and independent nomad still lingers in the hearts of many Arabs, and the goat-haired tent invokes a visual demonstration of Arabian Nights and romance. Goat's wool is woven outdoors on looms into strips of cloth 24 to 32 inches wide by Bedouin women. 6 to 8 of these strips are then sewn together, making each tent between 12 and 15 feet wide. The length of tents may vary, but the width remains the same. Center poles 10 to 13 feet apart divide tents into rooms with the help of woven walls 3 to 5 feet high. Most tents have 2 such rooms, one where the women sleep and the other for the men. Extended families may have 3, with the extra room for a son's family. Only tribal leaders have tents with 4 to 5 rooms, since great hospitality is expected of them when people come to visit. Living in a tent that is larger than what a family actually needs is considered pretentious, and also increases the expectation for hospitality because tent size proclaims wealth and position. The interiors of most village homes are designed like those of the tents. And another big shot of the city there. This guy out in the desert is praying toward Mecca. Look at these stones arranged so he knows where to face. How cool is that? The Aman message. Although Muslim extremists are much feared, that fear has perhaps never been as great as it has been since September 11th, 2001, with an attack against the United States. Moderate Muslims, who are the overwhelming majority, do not condone the actions of terrorists and are very worried about the perceptions of Islam in the West and the destructive results of those perceptions. In an effort to assuage the fears of the West, King Abdullah II released what he called the Aman message in November 2004. In it, he uses quotes from the Quran. Islam upholds human life. There is to be no fighting against non-fighters, no assault on civilians and their properties, on children in their mothers' laps, on students in the schools, on older men and women. To assault the life of a human being is equivalent to assaulting the right to life of all, and this is one of the gravest sins. Very important. Let's see. There's another guy praying here in the mosque, and this is the prayer ritual. Let's see. The form of prayer is strictly prescribed by Islam. Supplicants first stand upright facing Mecca. The ritual, called Raka, moves as follows and is repeated several times. Open the hands, touch the earlobes with the thumbs, lower the hands and fold them, right hand over the left, bow from the hips with hands on the knees, straighten the body, sink gently to the knees, touch the ground or floor with hands, nose, and forehead, remaining 10 to 15 seconds in this position. Raise the body while kneeling, sitting on the heels. Press the hands, nose, and forehead to the ground again, and stand. And of course, if you're not able to crouch down or stand or anything, there's exceptions to it, There's the Quran here showing off the beautiful script inside. We won't go over these, the phonetic differences in Arabic. We'll skip all those. these guys are talking with their hands here. Proverbs. Now this is what I'm talking about. When it comes to language, I want to read the Proverbs. I love Proverbs around the world. Let's see what they say. A good person learns from a wink. A bad one learns from a kick. One who has no good for his family has no good for any other. I have neither a she-camel nor a he-camel in this matter, which means I have no interest in the matter. I couldn't care less. I don't have a camel and I like that. Throughout its lifetime, the tree never reaches its God, meaning don't be too ambitious. Be content with what God has given you. He who observes the calamity of other people finds his own calamity is lighter. What has been written on the forehead, the eye will see. Meaning what has been ordained by God will happen sooner or later. He who does not listen to the older people will fall in the well. That's the best one yet. Where there are no people, there is hell. Interesting. Older than you by a day, wiser than you by a year. Meaning respect older people and their advice. Yeah, definitely, this is the best one. You'll fall in the well. Beautiful carpets here, all hand woven. Let's see. The inside of a Greek Orthodox church. Very, very beautiful. I love that shade of green. Playing the oud there in the tent. Very traditional. An ancient Bedouin folktale. In the search for new grazing pastures, a Bedouin tribe set out a raven, a partridge, and a dove to look for grass. The raven returned quickly, saying there was no grass to be found. The partridge and the dove came back later, saying that there was grass, soft as a lady's hair, within 2 days' journey. The Bedouins traveled to where the partridge and the dove had seen the grass and found it. To punish the raven, they colored it black to represent deceit. To reward the dove, they applied henna on its feet, just as they would for a young Arab bride. To reward the partridge, they decorated its eyes with black lines of coal. I like that. Little newsstand there downtown. Poets' words. Let's read some poems. Here are words of some Jordanian Palestinian writers that capture pictures of their situation. Mona Saudi. I find myself rootless and abandoned like a stone. Without love, there is no meaning to life nor to art. Why can't a man love a woman without having to choke her, to shut her up, controlling her mind, her dreams? How can we love in freedom, not in oppression? Only the woman is capable of that. Fadwa Tukan in Enough for Me. Enough for me to die on her earth, be buried in her, to melt and vanish in her soil, and then sprout forth as a flower, played with by a child from my country. Enough for me to remain in my country's embrace, to be in her close as a handful of dust, a sprig of grass, a flower. Very poetic. I mean, it's a poem, but poem by Kassan Saktan, A Mirror. 2 faces loom in the catastrophe, my father and his horses, a little moon, that we will capture sails above our house. If only we could regain our childhood, we'd imprison that moon a while between our hands, and when our hearts opened, let it fly away. I like it. Some beautiful jewelry here. Another box. So many boxes in this book, but I love it. Rugs. Nomads travel light for practical reasons. The ideal way to make a tent comfortable without a lot of heavy furniture is to use fabric. The typical Bedouin tent, and often village house, has large carpets that cover the entire enclosed ground, and these are piled with heaps of soft cushions on which the family sits and sleeps. The fabrics are woven from sheep, goat, and camel wool on horizontal hand-built looms. Small rugs are used over the carpets as prayer rugs. Each prayer rug has a geometric shape of an arrowhead at one end, and this is placed pointing toward Mecca when praying. These little carpets make a comfortable praying site. no matter where the believer might be when the call to prayer is heard. Awesome. Here's one of those looms right here. Another box for argilla. This is the argilla there, where you smoke. That's where the stuff goes that you smoke. Each argilla ranges from about 10 inches to 3 feet in height. Usually has a hand-blown glass body and brass fittings and stands on the floor. Sweet tobacco that has been cured with honey or sugared water is placed on a small tray on top of the argilla. A red-hot piece of charcoal is placed on top of the tobacco. At the bottom of the argilla is a water trap through which the smoke is sucked through a long woven hose. Sucking the smoke causes a pleasant bubbling sound that gives rise to the nickname of hubble bubble. The smoke smells sweet and feels cool in the mouth. The few scientific studies about the health consequences of smoking the water pipe, however, point to dangers that are similar to those associated with cigarette smoking. In spite of this, many Arab men, and also the more liberated women, still smoke the argilla after evening meals, especially when eating out in restaurants. Some street art there by a very proud artist. There's some more wonderful smiles. Lots of cute littles, even a little baby. At the art museum here. Let's read about gendered pastimes. Many activities are gender segregated in Jordan, although there is more social mixing among middle and upper class young people than in the past. Whole families may socialize together, or the men may join other men while the women and children mix with each other. The more conservative Jordanians feel that a few public activities are taboo for women. These include standing on the street talking to friends, eating in restaurants without the presence of a male family member, going to a tea or coffee house, and smoking in public. Men, on the other hand, spend most of their free time doing these very things with other men. Among more modern Jordanians, however, these taboos are not strictly observed, as many women today hang out on the street corners and in restaurants, socializing their day away in the company of other female companions. Older men in particular make a fine art of whiling away their time. I feel like old men around the world have a fine art of whiling away their time. They like to sit in tea houses drinking tea or Arabic coffee, which is a concentrated sweetened mixture served in small cups. Other pastimes are smoking the argilla, talking or playing board games such as mancala and backgammon. Great games. Even shopkeepers spend a great deal of time indulging in various pastimes when customers are scarce. On Thursday nights before the Friday day off, young men often hang out with male friends, talking, going to the movies, usually American action movies, or just watching young women passing by who are almost always with their families. Again, I feel like a lot of young men around the world do these things anyway. While men hang out in the streets, tea shops, and cinemas, most women are usually working hard at home, shopping for the family's needs, or chatting with daughters, sisters, mothers, and neighbors. There's some guys playing some backgammon right there. And let's see. Jordan hosted the Women's World Cup in 2016. That's cool. This is Jordan versus Spain, apparently. This guy just got married and he's being tossed in the air. Scary, but fun. It's a celebration, right? A wedding ritual. Before a wedding ceremony, conservative Muslim men perform a unique ritual in the streets. Wearing white skull caps, they stand in a circle around a mosque leader who is standing on the shoulders of one or two other men. The leader leans down toward the crowd of onlookers and waves his arms in time to a rhythm tapped out on a drum and the clapping of hands. He also chants verses from the Quran and bestows blessings upon the new couple. it is particularly important to ask for many sons to be born of the marriage. The chanting can last up to half an hour as the group parades down the street. After this ritual, the bridegroom is escorted to the door of his bride's home, or wherever the women's party is going on, and nudged in backward through the door. Some more boxes, national holidays. Let's read about festivals that draw tourists. I'd rather read that. In order to generate some much-needed tourist income for the country, Jordan sponsors and publicizes several events. One is the Camel and Horse Festival, which includes races with these animals and special talent and breed shows. Another is a colorful hot air balloon festival in Wadi Rum. Each year, tourists flock to the Jordan International Hot Air Balloon Festival, where they can see vibrantly colored balloons painted against the backdrop of the skies above the desert. The event kicks off with all the balloons taking flight together. The evenings are characterized by local musicians and artists presenting their talents. Concerts are also held occasionally in Amman's Roman Theater. There are two major festivals every year. The Jerash Festival for Culture and Arts takes place every August over a 2-week period and includes daily presentations by Jordanian, Arab, and international folk music troupes and performers, poetry readings, ballet, Shakespearean theater, and art shows. The Jerash Festival has come to serve as not just an entertaining exploit for the public, but also a professional venue for artists to interact. The Aqaba Sports Festival, held in mid-November, includes world-class competition in water skiing and other aquatic sports. The food chapter. Yum, 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 yum. Let's see. Serving up some food here in their tent. That's Mansaf. Looks really good. Eating out at the cafe. Let's read about Arabic bread. Arabic bread is made from wheat flour. Although some Bedouin women and rural families still make bread themselves using traditional methods, most families buy their flat bread from bakeries. It is a common sight in both villages and cities to see people walking home with large stacks of bread every morning. Many women carry the bread on their heads. To make the bread, flour is mixed with water and a little salt, but no yeast. There are a variety of tastes and textures, depending on how the bread is baked. At home, baking bread is a woman's task. The bread is round, flat, and eaten with all types of food. It is usually used to scoop up various dips, cheese, or meat dishes. And one last box here, fruit of the palms. The most common type of palm tree in Jordan is the date palm. It grows primarily in the desert, wherever there are oases or where seasonal water collects. Each tree can produce up to 600 pounds of fruit a year. The dates are vivid red-orange until they ripen, after which they turn a very dark brown. The date palm grows rows of new leaf stalks every year. The old stalks are harvested and woven into baskets and sturdy mats. The leaves, too, can be woven into lighter weight mats for tabletops, for example, small baskets, and even sandals. Traditional Bedouins derived a large part of their diet from date palms, and they used the stalks and leaves to make many handy household products. Today, most woven products from the trees are sold to tourists. They're shopping for spices here, and we have some recipes. Jordanian cheese-based dessert, yum. And some baba ganoush, made of eggplant. There's a big old map of Jordan. And here on this weird map, that's where Jordan, roughly, is located. And that is the end of our book for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this kind of content, please consider subscribing, as I read from books like this all the time. And I hope that you found this video relaxing and educational. And I hope that you have a very good night.